Book 7, Obilot. Reading theme, Passion. This story will now rest for a while with Gawain, famed as a man of worth. He rode a grail horse called Gringolet, which had been given to him by Obilot, whose brother had captured the horse after defeating a grail knight. Gawain had taken leave of Arthur, I do not know how many days past, and emerging from a forest with his retinue, a fearsome sight came into view. He saw an army led by many banners and marching in grand style, and after them ladies, not queens, but common girls who were the soldiers' sweethearts. Gawain knew that he had been seen, and turmoil arose in his heart. If he were to turn away, it would bring shame upon him, but if he were to join the fray and be defeated in battle, shame too would be his. After the army he saw a squire riding, and called him over to ask whose men these were and where they were going. The squire was taken aback that Gawain did not know the army or any of the knights riding with them, but apologizing for his rudeness, told the story. "This army is one of several who march with my lord King Melians, who is following soon behind. When the king was a child, his father died and put Melians into the care of noble Lippo, Duke of Beauroche. Lippo was a good and noble guardian to the young king, and raised Melians with his own children, his daughters Obi and Obilot. As they came of age, a deep love sprung up between Melians and Obi, but when he requested her to reward his attentions, proud Obi denied him. She said that none beneath an emperor would satisfy her, and that Melians had not even won fame in battle. At this, Melians flew into a rage and decided to return to his own kingdom. Having gathered his army and allies from amongst his neighbours, he is marching back to battle with Lippo's men, and so win Obi by force. Seeing King Melians appear in the distance, the squire bid Gawain farewell, and rode back to his master. Gawain and his men rode to Beauroche, a fairer castle than he had ever seen before, but found the gates all locked and barred against the enemy. Unable to enter, Gawain's retinue set up camp just outside. The mighty armies who fought with Melians were setting up camps there too, and there was much activity between the men, including friendly but fierce jousts. It so happened that as Gawain sat outside the gate, the queen of Beauroche and her daughters, Obi and Obilot, came onto the battlements to look out. Seeing Gawain, Obi, who was ever in a rage, having caused so much trouble but too proud to concede, announced that the stranger must be a merchant come to swindle the inhabitants of Beauroche. The child Obilot argued in Gawain's defence, but Obi demanded that the burgrave, Cherules, should go down and confiscate Gawain's belongings to pay for the ensuing battle. Duke Lippo commanded that the gates be opened to allow entrance to his own allies, whose armies had now arrived. Cherules went down and out through the open gate, but as he approached Gawain, he saw at once that this was no merchant, but a nobleman. Cherules offered himself as Gawain's host, and Gawain graciously accepted. When word of this met Obi's ears, she grew angrier still, and sent word to her father that Cherules had betrayed them by inviting in a swindler. But as with Cherules, when Duke Lippo saw Gawain, he knew him to be a worthy and valuable ally. Duke Lippo invited Gawain to join in the fighting. "I should be willing to do so," answered noble Gawain, "only there is a truce on my fighting. I must forego it till a duel that concerns me has been fought." He referred to the challenge put forth by King Grimacel, to which he was travelling. But the Duke would not be so easily dissuaded. He pleaded with Gawain to reconsider, and Gawain answered that he would think about it overnight and give his answer in the morning. Lippo thanked him and left immediately. In the courtyard he met Obilot and her playmate Claudette, Cherules' daughter. Lippo asked where Obilot was going, and she told him, "I am on my way down, father. I am sure Sir Gawain will do as I ask. I am going to ask the stranger to be my knight servitor." He told Obilot of Gawain's promise to say yes or no in the morning, pursue it to a successful conclusion, and he sent her on her way. As Obilot entered his room, Gawain leapt to his feet, and after welcoming the sweet child, sat down beside her and thanked her for championing him. "If ever a knight suffered pangs for such a little lady, I am in the throes because of you," he said. Obilot then took on the countenance of a young lady, and spoke ardent love words to the knight, so enamoured was she of his noble countenance. She requested that he fight on her behalf, offering her favour. "If yours are manly ways, I am sure you will not fail to serve me, who am so worthy to be served. Render your service for my reward alone." "Madam," he replied, "the music of your lips will part me from my honour. Yet, granted I were to devote my thoughts and attentions to winning your love, you would have to be 5 years older before you could bestow it. Let my sword be in your hand, and if anyone wishes to joust with me, you ride with me. People will see me doing battle there, but it is you who must be fighting for me." "That does not scare me at all," she answered. "I shall be your shield and your defence, your heart and firm faith, now that you have freed me from doubt." Gawain took her little hand in his, and swore to fight with her love and encouragement. When Obilot left, she met again with Claudette, and told her all that had happened. Knowing that it was custom for a knight to bear with him something from the lady whose favour he held, Claudette offered one of her dolls to Obilot, for the young maiden to give to her champion, but Obilot was not content. Duke Lippo and his wife arranged for a fine gown to be made for Obilot, but one sleeve was left off for her to bestow upon Gawain. When the dress was made, Obilot took the sleeve to her knight, and he pinned it to his shield. Night did as it has always done, and a new day marched in behind it, announced not by the carolling of larks, but something altogether more warlike, the clang of jousters colliding. When mass had been read, the armies readied themselves, and Gawain rode out with Lippo's men and allies to meet the enemy. Many armies had gathered there, and amongst those fighting on both sides, Gawain had friends from Arthur's court. He took pains to avoid fighting those he knew, moving to face strange armies and there do greater battle. In the fight he did not disgrace himself, but won much glory. He fought with men famed for their might, and won, capturing their horses, which he distributed amongst his allies. After many hours of brutal battle, Gawain came face to face with Melians. They fought bitterly, but Gawain prevailed and took the king as his prisoner. Unbeknownst to Gawain, on the far side of the field, and fighting for the other side, was the Red Knight, and he too was winning much glory. When word reached his ears that King Melians had been taken, the Red Knight knew the battle was over, and he turned to the prisoners whom he had captured. He commanded them first to go to Beauroche and offer themselves in exchange for King Melians. If this offer were not accepted, he commanded the men to roam the lands in search of the Grail at Montsalvache. Failing this, they were to go to Bel Repaire, to Condriamours, to conduct his love to her. For having now settled accounts with Cunovare, he no longer sent his defeated enemies to her, but to his wife instead. At Beauroche, Gawain returned the sleeve, hacked though it was, to Obilot, who fastened it over her bare arm, and each time she passed her sister, she asked, "Who did this?" and Obi was stung to anger by this prank. The prisoners the Red Knight had taken came up into the royal presence and explained what had happened. Gawain perceived at once that this Red Knight was Parzival, and with bowed head rendered up thanks to heaven that God had not let them engage in battle ardour that day. Gawain refused to exchange Melians for the prisoners now come, and so they departed on their further quest. Gawain and Melians and all the other brave noblemen came to the court, where Lippo and his wife and daughters, all four, were seated. The two elder women wept, but Obilot was delighted, and leapt immediately into Gawain's arms. Gawain turned to Melians and said, "You pledged yourself my prisoner. Now surrender yourself here, for perched on my arm is the giver of all my joys. You are to be her prisoner." Melians stepped forward as he was bidden, and strange though it all was, submission was done to Obilot with many knights to witness. She then commanded King Melians to transfer to her sister Obi the homage done to herself. "You must take her as your mistress to the glory of chivalry, and she must cherish you as her lover and lord always. I shall accept no excuse on either side." It was God himself that spoke through her young mouth. Her command was obeyed on both sides, and love with her great artistry worked with deepest loyalty, fashioned their affection as new. Obi's hand slipped from her cloak and took Melian's by the arm. With her red lips she kissed the place where the lance had passed, and the tears rained down on it. Who was it that made her so bold with all those people looking on? It was love, ancient, ever young. All Lippo's wishes had come true, for never had such happiness befallen him. At this, Gawain took his leave, and Obilot burst into tears. "Take me with you," she cried, but he denied the sweet child her wish. Her mother could scarce tear her away from him. He then said farewell to them all. Cerulus rode with Gawain as far as the forest, and sent him with food for the long journey ahead. He then took his leave, and rode out to meet the challenge at Champfantzen.